It's easy to think that when the great missionaries went out on their journeys that they were always courageous, that it was easy for them, that maybe God gave them this special grace that they could go into distant lands, into hostile cultures and bring the gospel without really feeling afraid or feeling nervous or unsure of what they were called to do. But I doubt that's actually the case. You know, being courageous doesn't mean that we don't feel fear. There's a difference between our feeling and the virtue. There's a difference between our feeling and our actions. I think of maybe St. Francis Xavier when he went to India. I wonder what he thought as he was first stepping on shore to this new country where he didn't know the people, he didn't really know the culture, the language. He didn't know what awaited him. I'm sure he was excited. I'm sure there was a sense of adventure, certainly the zeal for proclaiming the gospel. But I bet he was also nervous. I bet there was some uncertainty, even some fear within him. If we're going to evangelize, we have to take serious this difference between how we feel and what we do. The virtue of courage is what we do. It's not what we feel. We can be courageous even in the midst of feeling afraid. And in fact, often the feeling of fear is what comes natural to us because we're asked to do something we're not used to doing, that we haven't done before. I had one friend who was going to share his testimony. He was going to share the story of what God had done in his life with a friend of his. And so they went out and they were having lunch together. My friend was recounting this episode to me and he said to me, "Michael, when I was sharing with that guy, I was so nervous." And I remember thinking, of course you were. That's exactly what I would expect for someone who's sharing their story for the first time, for someone who's not used to speaking openly about God with another person. It's just fine that he felt afraid. What matters isn't that he felt afraid. What matters is that he still did it. And as we talked about earlier, the virtues grow by concrete action. See, we want them to grow by feeling differently. We say, you know what, when I feel courageous, I'll go out and start doing it. Well, the problem is that will never happen. If we're afraid and we're bound in fear and we don't actually do something, we will never become a courageous person, and therefore we will never actually feel courageous. I have a beautiful daughter who's 3 years old, and she's just wonderful, but the one thing I'm learning about 3-year-olds is that it's not natural for them to want to share. She likes her things, and even though she has 1,000 toys in the room, if someone takes one toy, she wants that toy right then. So she has this kind of natural inclination, which is, I guess, the fruit of original sin, to want to be possessive of what she has. And as a parent, I'm trying to, and along with my wife, we're trying to help her to overcome that unnatural desire to keep something for herself and to do what is good, even though she doesn't feel like it. My daughter does not feel like sharing. And even when she gives that teddy bear or that toy to her friend, she's not really doing it with a smile. She's doing it because we've asked her to do it or because she's recognizing that it's the right thing to do. But that feeling isn't there. But you know, if we do our job right as parents and she shares and shares and shares, hopefully by the time she becomes an adult, sharing is easy for her. Think of evangelization. You know, if you've never evangelized, if you've never, let's say, even really spoken openly at the office or among your friends about what God has done in your life, you should expect that you're going to feel afraid. That would be normal for just about everyone. The key is, don't let that paralyze you. Recognize that you feel afraid, but go out and act courageously anyway. And the miracle will happen. The miracle will be that if you do that over and over and over, all of a sudden one day when you go to speak openly about your faith, not only will that fear be gone, but the feeling you will have will be one of excitement and one of courage. That's how the saints became great missionaries. By not being paralyzed by their feelings and instead choosing to do those things which would be most effective for the work of evangelization. So today, while recognizing the feelings you have that hold you back from evangelizing, find opportunities to do what God is calling you to do.
What are our different sources of fear? I might fear that I'm going to be rejected, that somebody's going to think I'm a religious zealot, There's a fear associated just with standing out from the crowd. What is a source of fear that prevents you from evangelizing? What fear in your life predominantly stops you from evangelizing? Go share it in the Facebook group.